Good morning, YouTube. This video is going to go over just some kind of the odds and ends. My ditty bag, my hygiene bag, and my electronics bag. Just kind of a catch-all. One thing I do want to add that I didn't add in my last video is this was the silverware I used on the trail. It's a Duo Bites by Human Gear. Comes apart, fork, separate spoon. It was a good piece of gear. Not much to it. It just is what it is. So, but I wanted to add that in since I didn't put that in my kitchen video. Okay, first we're going to go over my ditty bag. What is a ditty bag? This is just a catch-all bag. This is all just the little items that I didn't want rolling around in my pack, that I didn't want out loose. I just kept everything in here. I kept it in a 4-liter Sea to Summit dry bag. I kept most everything in a dry bag just because I'm paranoid. And again, in it, this is just catch-all stuff. So we'll kind of go over what all I put in here. I kept my medicine in here. That's probably the biggest thing. This is how I kept my prescription meds. I kept them in a Ziploc bag, but I made sure I had a lot of desiccant packs inside here, and that worked the whole trail. I kept my prescription meds in a Ziploc bag the whole time. So we'll talk about this a little bit. This is a product that was actually a lifesaver for me. I honestly feel that this saved my hike after I got hurt. Those of you who remember in Pennsylvania, I ended up with an overuse injury in my shin. This is a product that my doctor gave me. This is the generic version, but it's Voltaren gel, and that's Voltaren gel. It's a prescription anti-inflammatory ointment. This stuff worked wonders for me. Worked wonders on my shin. I also used it on my knees and my elbows and my shoulder every now and then. It's a really, really good product. If you could talk to your doctor to see if he'll prescribe you some before you leave, it's kind of a good thing to carry with you. If not, if you get an injury or any kind of thing like that, this will certainly help. It's heavy, it's big, but it comes in a smaller tube. My doctor just gave me the big tube because I was hurt pretty good. So. Again, good stuff. Highly recommended. We talked about that I always carried 2 cans of fuel. I always kept an extra can of fuel in here. Say what you want. It worked for me. This was my system. I kept 2 of them just so I never ran out. I kept a comb in here. I got this comb at a hotel in, I think maybe in Hiawassee. So I had this for a long time on the trail, and I used this to comb my hair and my beard with. I kept, kind of towards the end, I kept my toothbrush, my toothbrush and toothpaste in here. It was just easier in here. I always had this out, and I kept keeping it in my food bag, but then I'd pack all my food bag stuff up, and then, I wouldn't brush my teeth. So this has let me brush my teeth a lot more. And it's nothing more than just a travel toothbrush, and nothing fancy at all. I got one at the Myers before I left. I picked another one up in the Trail Magic at the Settlers Museum, and I bought another one at Walmart. So I just traded them on and off, but again, nothing fancy. Just a travel toothbrush, and this is what worked well for me. Earplugs. These are earplugs. These, actually, Riz and Jelly showed me these, and these are wax earplugs. Kind of hard to see, but they're little round wax, and you take them and you roll them up a little bit and warm them up in your hands, and then you don't insert them in your ears. You just use them to cover the ear canal. Man, these things worked wonders in hostels and anytime I was around people snoring. So, no offense, man, love you, Riz, but you snore like crazy. So, this is what saved us. And again, Jelly and Riz are the ones who told me about these. So, I did use earplugs the entire trail. But these are the most comfortable and the easiest ones. You can use them for about a week before they get dirty and you got to throw them away. So, 1 pack will last you a couple months. So, let's see. All right, I always kept a bar of soap. and this is just nothing more than a hotel bar. I don't even know where I got this one at. I always kept from whenever I'd go to a hotel on a 0 day, I would always take one bottle or one bar of soap and keep it in here. You never know when you're going to get an opportunity to take a bath, take a shower on the trail, and they're not going to have soap or shampoo or anything like that. I use these to take showers in rivers and state parks and all of those things where they don't provide any soap. So I always kept that. It worked good for me. All right, this is my first aid kit and my repair kit all in one, and I kept this the whole way. I made some additions at the end because I was having some issues with my feet. So, but here's what I kept in here. Let's open this up. Okay, in here it's hard to see, but in here I kept some needle and thread and there's a pair of tweezers as well. The tweezers were great. I used them for all different kinds of things. The needle and thread were great. I used them to repair gear. I used them at the end to lance blisters and keep things going. And it's just a pretty simple thing to carry it in. Fingernail and toenail clippers. Can't stress these enough. If you're going on a through hike, you gotta have these. You gotta keep your toenails trimmed up. It's very important that you keep your toenails trimmed up, or you're gonna lose them. I didn't lose a single toenail on the trail, and that's because I think I kept them trimmed well, and I had good fitting shoes. Let's see, alcohol prep pads. I kept a couple of these just because out there, for some reason, whether it's because your immune system is depressed because of all the work you're doing or just the environment you're in, but it seemed like anytime I got a small little nick or cut, especially around my fingernails and my toes, it would get infected really quickly. So anytime I had an issue, I would clean it up with alcohol wipe and then follow that up with triple antibiotic cream. And I use this quite often actually on the trail, especially for small cuts and scrapes. Just some assorted Band-Aids. They're nothing special. I can't even remember where I got these at, but they're just assorted Band-Aids. And I have more of these now than I did through most of the trail, but that's again because at the end, I don't know if you guys remember, I started to have some blister problems because of the shoes I was wearing. So, so I've got a little more in these. I really only kept like one or two at a time. You got to remember, when it comes to your first aid kit, you're never more than 4 or 5 days from a town. So, unless you've got a sucking chest wound, which you got big problems if you do, you really don't need to carry a whole bunch of stuff, because you're going to be able to you don't have to carry a lot of each item, because you're going to be in a town soon where you're going to be able to replenish this stuff. So, and I did that throughout the trail. KT tape. I have a lot of KT tape at the moment. Again, at the end, I had to buy a whole roll, and you can see I've got little scraps and pieces that I cut. At the end, I tell you, man, I had more KT tape on my feet than skin, and that has to do with my shoes and just the overall terrain and how wet my feet were. So, and we'll go over that when I go over my clothing. So that was KT tape. This stuff is good. It's good for blister prevention because it goes on and it stays on. A lot of people recommend Leuco tape. I don't have any experience with it. I didn't use it. This is just KT tape, or I just used KT tape and I liked it a lot better. Okay, this is the repair kit for my Thermarest pad. I just kept it. It did come in a bag. I don't know what I did with it. I probably got rid of it. But just the repair kit for my sleeping pad. This is some Tenacious tape. Tenacious tape is really a good product. It actually was 2 pieces, twice the size, but I used some of it. I used it on my pack to punch or patch up some holes. I used it on some of my dry bags that got holes in them. So Tenacious tape is a good product. I also used it. I used it on my raincoat too. So Tenacious tape is a good product, and I recommend you keep at least one little section of it to be able to use. What are these? These are these are just sterile pads. I didn't carry these at all on the trail. These were just because I had that burn on the top of my foot in the 100-mile wilderness. That's the only reason I use these. So I don't really recommend keeping these in your first aid kit. The one thing, if you keep KT tape, the one thing you can do is you can turn this into a Band-Aid with just some toilet paper, which everybody carries toilet paper, with just toilet paper and some of this, and that will serve as a bandage until you can get to town. Safety pin. I carried 2 safety pins. I actually used one and lost it. But so safety pins, another good thing. They can do all kinds of things. You can use these to fix your pack, to repair clothing, zippers, things like that. So I recommend safety pin. This is just some Cuban fiber repair tape that came with my tent, and I did end up using some of this for my dry bags. I don't even know why I have this. This is a pin from the Lazy Hiker, and I carried this all the way from Franklin. So just a memento from the trail. And then my Leatherman squirt. I love this thing. I used it all the time. I used it. I tell you, I used it just about every day. It's got pliers in there, which I didn't use that often. It's got screwdrivers, knife blades, but the thing that I used the most was the scissors. I used these to cut KT tape, to cut my bandages and things like that whenever I needed them. So, I recommend you have something similar to this, something like this, just a small knife. I know the ultralighters use just a razor blade. It wouldn't work for me. But I love this thing, and again, it's called the Leatherman Squirt. Okay, so that is my ditty bag. Let's move all this stuff out of the way, and we will get into my hygiene bag. I'm being kind by calling it a hygiene bag. This is my poop bag. So this is what I use to keep all those kind of toiletries in. So at the end, I liked wipes, and I tried to always use the biodegradable wipes when I can. If I didn't, I packed out the wipes. These I got at Shaw's Hiker Hostel, because this was the only type of wipes they had, and they're just called tush wipes. Again, I only use these at the end because that's what they had. I always kept a roll of toilet paper in here. I don't have any toilet paper in here. You guys all know what toilet paper is. So the other thing, the big thing, and we talked about this before my hike. This is a small tub of Boudreaux's butt paste. This stuff was a godsend on the trail. I used it, especially the last few weeks. I really was chafing pretty bad because it was hot and everything. So this stuff is great for chafing, and I used it all the time. I found that Body Glide did not work for me. So this stuff I used it everywhere. I used it on my butt. I used it on my legs. I used it even on my shoulders. So great stuff. Works good. Again, Boudreaux's butt paste. This is something I learned at the end, probably just in the last 2 weeks of my hike, 2-3 weeks of my hike. And I wish I'd have thought about this for the whole thing. This is just a little jar of Vaseline. I didn't use this for chafing. I used this for my feet. I put this on at night and put a pair of socks on, and it helped. It helped with my feet when they were dried and cracking. But I also put this on every morning the last few weeks on the trail, in between my toes, on top of my toes, and I just slathered up my toes with this stuff. Because if you remember, I was having some issues with blistering because of the shoes I was wearing. We'll get into that. But anyways, this stuff, it was great, and I plan to keep using it, even though I've switched back to my original shoes. I still plan to use this on my toes because it really cuts down on friction, cuts down on blisters. Of course, just a handy dandy bottle of Purell, just hand sanitizer. I'll be honest, I carried this stuff off and on the trail. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. I carried wipes with me, a lot of the antibacterial wipes, and I found those to be a lot better, and I just kept those in my food bag. But I did use this. This I used off. This is just a family version. It's only like 15, maybe 30% DEET. I don't even know. Yeah, it's like 15% DEET. So, okay, this wasn't so much for mosquitoes because it really didn't do a whole bunch for mosquitoes. I actually wore a head net for them. This I used for chiggers and for ticks. And that, I think it did work wonders on. It kept chiggers off of me and it kept the ticks away from me. I don't think I ever had a tick latched onto me that I know of. And I've been tested for Lyme disease since I've been back and I don't have it. So this was great. Yeah, it did work for some of the bugs and gnats and things, but it didn't work very long. So I kept this with me. This is just, I always bought this at Walmart in the travel section. That's the same place I get this. And this was in the travel section in Walmart, which is usually in the pharmacy. So great stuff. And I kept toilet paper. So if you watched my original gear videos, you do see that I had a trowel, a deuce of spades. I lost it in the first couple of weeks on the trail, and I never replaced it because it's not necessary. You're very, very rarely will you have to dig down into dirt. What you're digging down into is duff, which is decomposed leaves and sticks and moss and things like that. And you can very easily get down the 6 to 8 inches that you need. Really, you shouldn't go more than 6 inches to dig your cat holes. So it really wasn't difficult. I just used a stick. There's no lack of sticks out there. So I used a stick. I dig a hole. We're not going to get into the more disgusting details of that, but that's how I did it. I mean, I recommend carrying a trowel, but and I strongly encourage leave no trace principles. So leave no trace principles are very important, and I practiced them. It was easier for me to use a stick. Okay, so we'll go over my electronics bag. This is kind of neat. So this is a hefty slider Ziploc bag. I only used 2 of these my entire hike. My first one lasted me all the way up till I got hurt and came home in Pennsylvania, and just because I just replaced it because I figured maybe it'll wear out. But these hefty Ziploc bags are fantastic, at least for this application. So I'll kind of go over what I kept in here. So this is the charging cube that I used. It's an Aukey, A-U-K-E-Y. And it's a double port, which I needed so that I could charge 2 things at once. Essentially, I could charge my battery and my phone at the same time when I was in a hotel. It's also a smart charging system because my phone is a Note 8 and it does fast charging. So essentially, I can charge my phone in like an hour using this cube. It also charges my Anchor battery faster. I can't remember where I got this. Actually, Chris Goes Outdoors from he hiked last year from YouTube. He actually sent me the link for this, but it's a good product, and it's A-U-K-E-Y. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but this one's good. A little heavy, but it is what it is. I always kept a pen. And these. These are just earbuds. These are the earbuds that came with my phone. I actually lost a pair of them and went into a Verizon store, and somebody gave me another pair. For me, these things, and I think you'll remember in a video where right when I was getting into the whites, they fell out of my pocket, and I mean, I was just beside myself because these were everything to me. This is how I fell asleep every night. Every night I would go into my tent early, and I would just get off my feet, lay on my pad, and I would sit and listen to music, plan my next day, work on my feet, do my things. But these helped me sleep at night. They relaxed me. These were just so very important to me. So this is one of my most favorite pieces of gear and one of my most important pieces of gear. But it's very simple, just a pair of earbuds. I also carried the cords, which I don't have right here. 2 cords, one to charge this, and then one USB-C cord to charge my phone. That's just the type of cord my phone takes. So I always kept those. So this was a huge weight penalty. This is an Anchor 20,000 milliamp charger. I think I'm saying that right. But this thing was fantastic. This thing would charge my phone 7-8 times. Not a single time on the trail. Never during my whole hike did this ever run out, and did my phone ever die on me. So I did get it down right to the end a couple times, to the last little bit of this thing. But this was fantastic. It's probably overkill. Matter of fact, it is overkill. I tell you right now. You could probably get by with the 10,000 milliamp. I did it because I knew I was going to be videoing my hike and doing some things. It came in handy. I don't know. I think I'll switch to the 10,000 one, but I've already paid for this. I have it, but it's 13 ounces. This thing weighs almost a pound, so that's a big weight penalty. But again, I liked it. It did everything that I like to do. So my philosophy in the beginning of my hike on electronics was that I didn't want to use them. I wanted to get away from them. That was one of the things. As you know, I own my own business, and my phone would ring a lot, and I was trying to get away from that. So really, in the beginning of my hike, I didn't really use my electronics much, except to do my videos. Again, I can't show you my phone because that's what I'm using to record with, but I recorded every one of my YouTube videos on my Note 8, my Samsung Note 8, and I loved it. It did everything I needed to do. So I used my phone for the Guthooks app. I used my phone as a phone. I used it to keep up with my social media, Netflix, which I'm kind of alluding to here. So in the beginning, I really didn't use my phone much. But after I got injured and I got back on the trail, the first couple of days I was lonely. I didn't have, I wasn't hiking around anybody, and I wasn't hiking big miles because I was trying to dial back. So I was doing like 8 to 10 miles a day. So I was getting into camp at like 2 in the afternoon. So I was lonely and I was bored. So I started one afternoon, I was sitting there in my tent and I looked down, I had service. So I pulled up Netflix just on a whim, looked at it, and I was able to watch a movie. I sat and watched an entire movie in my tent. It was hilarious. It was amazing. I was sitting there, I couldn't believe, here I am, middle of the wilderness on the Appalachian Trail, and I'm watching a movie in my tent. So I ended up doing that a couple times, and then I downloaded some episodes of TV shows, Stranger Things, and a couple other ones. And I watched those, but after a while, I stopped doing that. Once I started hiking around people again, and once I started hiking bigger miles, I didn't watch any videos anymore. But it was nice to be able to do that. But every night, I did listen to my music on my phone. So I'm glad I have that. I have Spotify, and I actually had my music downloaded to my phone, so I did not need service to be able to use it. But music was a very important part of my hike. At the end of my hike, probably the last month and a half of my hike, I did listen to music while I was hiking, which I didn't do in the beginning because I wanted to listen. I never did it in the morning because in the morning when I left out early, I always loved to hear the birds chirping, see the wildlife and things like that. So I didn't use my headphones. I didn't use them at all in Pennsylvania too because of all the rattlesnakes. But I did do it towards the end. It just helped me pass my day. Say what you want about it, but if you've never thru hiked, you might change your mind at the end of your hike. I did. So, but that's my electronics, my ditty bag, and my hygiene bag. This is just kind of the catch-all, the stuff that I used. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. All right, folks, we'll be back.